Yes, well, it's across all the papers this morning, as you would expect. The comedian and actor Russell Brand has been accused of rape, sexual assault and emotional abuse during a 7-year period at the height of his fame.
4 women have alleged sexual assaults between 2006 and 2013, whilst he was a presenter for BBC Radio 2 and Channel 4, and then, of course, an actor in Hollywood films. Others have made a range of accusations about his controlling, abusive and predatory behaviour.
Well, the findings come from a joint investigation by the Sunday Times, The Times and Channel 4 dispatches. The allegations include crew members on his Big Brother spin-off programme claiming they were made to feel as though they were working as a pimp by approaching young women on his behalf, and claims that he raped a woman at his Los Angeles home. Their interviews are voiced by actors in the Channel 4 programme, and you may find some of this content a little bit distressing.
He's grabbing at my underwear, pulling it to the side. I'm telling him to get off me, and he won't get off. Like holding me up against the wall, pushing himself in me.
He grabbed me and got me on the bed. I was fully clothed and he was naked at this point, and he held me down and he was just aggressively trying to, me.
I was like, oh my God, he raped me.
He forced his penis down my throat and I couldn't breathe. It was just choking me. I was crying and he said, oh, I only want to see your mascara run anyway. I phoned and somebody asked what it was regarding, and I said, that's regarding Russell Brand being a sex offender.
Well, on social media, Brand has denied utterly the allegations and said his relationships have all been consensual. This is what he said on Twitter on Friday evening.
Amidst this litany of astonishing, rather baroque attacks are some very serious allegations that I absolutely refute. These allegations pertain to the time when I was working in the mainstream, when I was in the newspapers all the time, when I was in the movies, and as I've written about extensively in my books, I was very, very promiscuous. Now, during that time of promiscuity, the relationships I had were absolutely always consensual. I was always transparent about that then, almost too transparent, and I'm being transparent about it now as well.
Well, let's talk to our showbiz reporter, Stephanie Tecci, who's here. Morning, Stephanie.
Morning,
I mean, these are very serious claims being made.
It is. As Russell Brand said there, he's always been transparent about his attitude towards sex and the amount of women he's seen over the years. That's not a shock. What has been shocking now is hearing the side of these 4 women and the claims that they are making against Russell Brand. Having been in the showbiz industry for a long time, I've never seen a sting like this, an operation where we've had a newspaper and dispatches come together because they've been working on this for the past year, gathering all this evidence. Not many people knew about it. So they've definitely done it in a different way. Russell Brand, rightly so, came out with this video because he had right of reply, but he's known about this for the past 8 days, so he knew that there was going to be a storm brewing in public. But for Russell Brand, it's been business as usual. He performed a sold-out gig in Wembley yesterday, arrived a bit late. He was an hour later. Some people say he was a bit flustered on stage, more than usually he might be. So for Russell Brand, he's determined to fight these allegations, but they have been horrific to hear the side of the story of these women.
Yes, and of course, we have to remember, innocent until proven guilty.
Yes.
And last night will have felt to some people like trial by media.
And I think...
And it sort of reminds me of the time... Oh, pardon me, I've got a squeaky chair. It sort of reminds me of the time when the BBC sent helicopters to spy in on Cliff Richard's house while we're being raided by police, in that people are going to make up their minds. But actually, what we heard last night was only one side of the story.
It was very one-sided and it was very dramatised. I think usually there's a bit of respect if the newspapers are going to break such stories where they might put it in the newspapers and leave this. This was coming into people's homes, and they've been working on this, as I said, for the past year. So they've had a very long time to present a very well put together case. But Russell Brand is not someone to take these things lying down. He's been very, very transparent about all of his addictions. He's very much a dark character, but over the past few years, he's transformed himself. He's become almost a cultural activist, and he's actually been someone who's actually been supporting women's rights. So this is why it's at odds, because I feel like they were portraying an old Russell Brand between 2007 and 2006 and 2013. But these are still accusations which people are going to, maybe police are going to have to investigate.
But I was going to say, this is where it does become difficult. As Anne said, trial by media, in that, you know, these are very serious allegations, but what we aren't seeing, at the moment at least, is a police investigation.
Well, I can imagine that they were watching last night, and, you know, we've had some damaging claims of rape, grooming. One of the accusers is just 16 years old when she met Brand. So for her to be talking about that turmoil, people always ask, why now? Why do you want to speak now? And she feels that no 16-year-old should be managed to be groomed by a man in his 30s. So she's calling for changes to be made. There's accusations of when Russell Brand was at the BBC, when he was at Big Brother, having these kind of control over women. So there's going to be questions about duty of care, which we've seen previously on the Philip Schofield case and on the Hugh Edwards thing. So beyond these cases, there's always that bigger question of duty of care and who knew what.
Yes, because it's one thing for him to say these relationships were consensual and they happened at home or something like that. But then there's a whole other issue of things that he is alleged to have done, absolutely appalling behaviour that he is alleged to have made whilst he was at the BBC, in studios, whilst he was at Channel 4, in studios. And that brings in a whole new, as you said, the question of duty of care of those particular institutions.
And I think, you know, from watching last night, it was almost Russell Brand was portrayed as a martyr. And that's the problem with these kind of situations. You realise, how did someone get away with this kind of behaviour for so long? But it's not surprising to the public. I think, as I've said, Russell Brand has written it in books extensively. You know, he's had a very abusive past. His father used to take him to brothels to sleep with prostitutes. So he's always, you know, he's a dark and sordid character. So it's not a surprise, and that's why I think maybe some of the public will sit on the fence about this situation.
Well, we shall, as I say, he denies these very serious claims against him, and we will have to see whether the police do decide or not to take up an investigation. Stephanie, for now, thanks very much indeed.